The moment you need a device to tell you how your body feels, your system is already becoming expensive to run. Now, wearables were designed to help give you clarity, but I find for most high performers, they're quietly creating more noise than signal. Welcome to the Mind Body Guy podcast, where we examine how humans lose efficiency and how to restore it. Today's podcast is brought to you by the Human Efficiency Method and the Burnout app. Here's today's efficiency brief. What I want to explore more today is something I'm seeing more and more in my high performers. Smart people, highly successful people, capable people, driven people. People are used to doing everything right, but their system's actually getting heavier, not lighter, more expensive to run, not less. Because there's a point where tracking stops creating awareness and it starts creating dependency, urgency, anxiety. And there's a point where optimization stops increasing your capacity and it starts increasing your operating cost. And most high performers don't realize when they've crossed that line. So today we're going to talk about where that line actually is. So first I want to start with that I'm not anti-wearable. They're not bad. They're very useful. They can help bring awareness and early feedback can help. It's the same as blood tests. I'm pro blood tests, but too many blood tests isn't useful. It's an anxiety thing. I'm pro weighing your body or getting feedback, biometric data. But as we've all seen, people who obsessively weigh themselves every day, that doesn't work out to be a benefit them and it doesn't help in any way, right? And that is the same as where I sit on wearables. The problem isn't the wearable. The problem isn't the scale or the biometric feedback data. It's when the tool becomes a crutch, when the tool becomes a distraction, when the tool becomes an anxiety creating force. What I'm seeing is wearables in my high performers are becoming, well, one, definitely a distraction. When I'm losing energy, when if I can't distract myself on Instagram, or if I can't zone out on Netflix, or if I can't do something else, make a call, I can get feedback on my data if I'm not getting distracted by my body pain and optimizing my posture and my position. High performers don't necessarily lose function because they're lazy. It's because they become too focused and too easily distracted. They're used to working on themselves. And so they create a whole lot of different ways to work on themselves that effectively end up just becoming a distraction. So I find that the wearable it turns into hypervigilance. It creates over monitoring. It creates comparison, right? A high performer wants to naturally judge themselves against every other human on earth. I need to be either high in the tribe, middle. I can't be below these people. So I need to have data that exhibits that. I want feedback on where I sit compared to this cohort. And it becomes less about it becomes less of a empowerment device and more of a disempowerment device, rather than listening into myself and going, I mean, it's pretty easy to know if you've had poor sleep, right? It's pretty easy to know if you're feeling anxious. If you listen into your body, it's pretty easy to know if you've been taught to listen in. But when we offset that or outsource that intuition, that listening, that critical understanding of our body to a device, it's the same as outsourcing that to a person. Imagine saying to someone, do I feel good? Do I like these clothes? Should I wear this? Am I happy right now? Some people do that, but we want to maintain our authority. Eventually, when we become a high performing individual and we are highly efficient, the outside world has very little ability to affect our internal biochemistry. So there's two normal phases I find high performers go through when they get onto the wearables. One is everyone else has got them, so I better, because I don't want to be under anyone else. But initially we get this insight like, I had no idea my sleep was disrupted. They get feedback, and that can be helpful. Like, I had no idea. Now I have an idea. But that soon becomes dependency and disempowerment, right? As I start to increase my feedback just on the machine, I increase my monitoring. This increased cost because it takes my bandwidth. And so initially, we see that it can be quite beneficial. Same as when I first jump on a scale, if I've never jumped on one for ages and I go, oh, Jesus, I didn't notice that. Or my blood test, it's like, oh, wow, my system's really struggling to get me back in balance here. But, I've had clients that are getting blood tests multiple times, like every month or 4 times a year. And these are healthy people, right? That's not efficiency, that's cost, that is fear, that is anxiety, that is worry, that is distraction. That is not an efficient human, despite what anyone tells you. So uh, eventually we move from this initial awareness into dependency, increased management, increased cost. And when that starts to create, the cost becomes high. And when my cost is high, my energy becomes low. My ability to focus becomes low. I become more distractible. Um, my resource management becomes low. So my ability to operate cleanly all day becomes low, and I'll have more dips, more ups and downs. Um, Tracking increases your cognitive load. It increases your emotional vigilance. It increases your monitoring. It actually even increases your second guessing. Now, initially, maybe it helps you bring awareness, and it does because I had no awareness. But soon I start again outsourcing what I know to what I'm being told. And that's where we go wrong. We go wrong in that anytime I outsource what I feel to somebody else as well, right? If I'm outsourcing my decisions, I mean, this is where we see the difference between a highly trust driven system, a highly efficient system where I make choices versus a highly nervous, an inefficient system, a low worth system that needs to make decisions based on 100 people's feedback and all the statistics. They'll start a sentence like, well, everybody says this, or the data says this, not I prefer this because that's my choice, right? Anyway, the more your system needs external data to be safe, this means the less internal trust it has and the less efficiently you're running. The more it is costing you to run your system, and the worse your health, the worse your focus, the worse your consistent mood, the worse your ability to feel joy and lightness, the heavier it is to operate. Now, high performers, we fall into that trap more than anyone because we love feedback, right? We love optimization. Like, I love optimization, but luckily for me, I love efficiency even more. I want to do the very least I have to do to feel the best I have to feel. High performers, we love control. We can fall into over controlling things. High performers can fall into overriding body signals because we want to be right, we want to be perfect. So, this is where people probably right now are using Chat GPT too much because, well, that sounds a lot better, even though it's inaccurate or it's not authentic, or I actually don't even believe what I'm saying, right? High performers can fall into the trap of avoiding all uncertainty because of these needs to constantly perform, to never make a mistake, to always appear really perfect or excellent, and so we don't seem to get trapped by laziness. We'll get trapped by over engagement, hyper feedback, if you want to say. Now, I went through this. I mean, I don't want to judge people here because I've I've been the worst of the worst. Like, I'm a high performer from my core, and the story I'm going to tell you is it shows just how ridiculous it gets. But in about 2012 or 13, I was creating it in 2012, but it launched. I probably, at the time, to my knowledge, I created the highest performing high performance center in the world. It cost 2.1 million, and every part of my client's engagement was tracked. I knew exactly how much their output was in workout sessions, outside of our session, and it all came into my back end and into the client's back end for so much. I was able to track their macros, their energy intake, able to track their performance, their engagement, their education, their biometric data, their posture data, their movement data. Like, I had such a snapshot on exactly where this person was, where they were tracking, where they were growing, where they were falling off. And to be honest, after all that investment, all that tracking, all the extra cost to manage and monitor these people, so much feedback, the performance wasn't any better than actually pulling all that back and teaching them how to listen to their body, listen to their key cues. I mean, I was having people that would stop mid-session because their feedback watch wasn't working, or they were out of their zone, so they wanted to argue with you on how much they were there, or they'd spend all their time trying to stay in a zone instead of just working as hard as they could. They were overriding what they should be eating by trying to maximize their thing. And because they couldn't understand it, they'd shut down and just ignore it. They were pushing really hard to get my praise and feedback, but not really understanding things and rushing. And so my push for high performance created an environment of lower performance. And I wanted to empower people, and I was becoming and creating disempowerment. And this is, I guess, why I'm maybe 10 years ahead of this loop, where I believe I'm ahead. Maybe you'll think I'm behind, but where I'm highly aware of what these wearables are doing and what over tracking does, and where outsourcing your empowerment takes you. And it's not a great place, I promise you. And the clients that I work with, these are highly performing individuals, sometimes 9-figure, 8-figure, nearly always 7-figure, CEOs, entrepreneurs. These people are capable. These people have learnt to back themselves in many systems, not in every system, and a lot of times in their health, in their emotional well-being, in their structure, in their biochemistry. They might have nailed their finances. And a lot of times in the other side of things, I've got people that haven't nailed their finances that are a lot further ahead in regards to being able to track my health and my autonomy in my operation, right? But these people are highly capable people, and they're getting trapped into a system that is not necessarily more beneficial. Where did I want to go next? I'm just going to look at my notes. I feel like there's a really large cost when I start to find people that become more hyper vigilant, over adapted. That load cost, because it's like, if I find someone that is meditating an hour every day, rather than patting them on the back, which is, I mean, it's a great thing if you need it. And initially, when you've gone from not using it, or if you've got a very unsafe system, a system that has hypervigilance, a system that is overly down and despondent and despairing and feeling futile about the future and your capability to feel good again, or if you're starting to work too hard, then it becomes too high cost and you're carrying too much. And that doesn't mean efficiency. That means, so sometimes having something to track you and provide incremental data that my sleep is slightly improving, or my REM sleep slightly improving, or my HRV, that's the thing at the moment. Everyone's working on their vagus nerve and their HRV. In another year, you'll realize that that's pretty much a waste of time, right? It's the same as hyper focusing on posture. It's hyper focusing on any system. When we build into a silo, when we lean into a silo and avoid all else, or etc., especially something that's purely a communication system, not really a driver. We can optimize the communication system, but we really want to think, why am I communicating around my system like that in the first place? Why is that message being created? For many of the high performing men that I work with that have very low testosterone, it's not necessarily your HRV. In fact, not necessarily. It's never your HRV. It's never even your testosterone. It's not what you're doing. It's why is your system not needing, or why is it needing a low testosterone level, right? Normally the system will create what it needs. And when we start to identify that from a system level, not a siloed level, not, going specifically into just your reproductive system, or even worse, just into your hormone levels, or let's not even care about that. Let's just inject it, because now we've got all this TRT, like pretty much every high performing man over 30 is coming to me with these questions and basically wanting me to say, yeah, just get on it. It's fine. Um, it's a crutch. It is, if you start injecting like that, you're going to have to do it forever, because you're basically overriding that system and overriding that signal. And that is a very important signal that your body's trying to teach you, right? It is a solution, not necessarily a symptom. But let's get into that in future podcasts. So I just wanted to rehab. I'm not anti-wearable. I'm anti-chronic dependency. I'm anti-crutch. I'm anti-building cost in your system, because I know we are one system. And when we build cost, we are going to throw that cost over onto your structure. We are going to offset that cost into your biochemistry. We're going to offset that cost into your emotions. It's going to be placed somewhere, because your system is intrinsically intelligent. It is brilliant. And so whenever I see a chronic dependency, a crutch, a high cost activity, or something that is now wasting efficiency, wasting your energy, I'm against that, So use it in small amounts. I would prefer someone just like weighing, right? I don't want you to avoid weighing in. I don't want you to avoid measuring yourself. I don't want you to avoid photos, but don't do it every day. Do it regularly, maybe monthly or quarterly. Same with blood tests. I don't want you to never have a blood test. I would love if every person on earth came to me with an annual blood test. That would give me great data. But I'm seeing high performers come to me with, like, seriously, monthly blood tests. I'm like, that is, that proves where their system's at. That proves how anxious, how hypervigilant they've become, which is a great strategy to avoid what's underneath the hood, but it's not efficient in any way. So with your wearables, I would recommend putting it on for a couple of days at the end of the month, or maybe for a week every quarter. That brings awareness. That brings something we can track. And, we're looking for data points and consistency across patterns. That gives us feedback. Over the course of 2 years, if you wear your wearable for 4 days every quarter, or 3 days every month, imagine the feedback. That's huge. That is far more important than every single day waking up going, did I sleep well? Oh God, where's my HRV at? Oh my God. That's the same as the old school lady that weigh up and be like, oh, I'm 500 grams up. Oh my God, it must be the pasta last night. I put on so much fat. It's probably just that you haven't had a poo today. It creates anxiety. It creates hypervigilance. That's what I'm saying. So I'm not anti-feedback. I love feedback. Feedback brings empowerment, awareness, but it needs to be done right. Let me put a little caveat on that. I would much prefer someone to use something like a Whoop than an iWatch, because the Whoop only gives feedback. Still not a fan unless it's in those controlled windows, but an iWatch not only adds hyper feedback, but it adds the ability to be distracted all the time. It's creating data all the time. It means that you are hyper contactable. When we create an efficiency system, a high value, high performing system, we create these amazing buffers and safety in ourselves, so that people can't just get us whenever they want. We are not always contactable. We can't be distracted by a notification, a system, anything that takes us out of flow, out of optimal operation and clean running. Get rid of it, or minimize it, or use it in a way that allows us still to operate cleanly. I hope that makes sense. So I want to tie this all back into efficiency, because that is everything in my performance, or in my understanding. High performance isn't about how tightly you can monitor your system. That's not it. It's about how affordable it is for your system to run without constant supervision. So let me say that again. High performance isn't about how tightly you monitor your system. Now, think about this, because I think this will hit for a lot of you. When you've got a highly anxious manager or CEO at your work and they micromanage you, nobody likes that. Especially high performers, we hate that. Tell me what the outcome is. I will get there doing it my way. And if I don't, I will I really enjoy your feedback and I'll take it on. But don't sit over there. As a CEO, as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to hire people that are better at their job than you are. And you're supposed to empower them and then sit back and go, kick some ass. Nobody likes micromanagement. Your system doesn't like micromanagement because it's fucking expensive. So high performance isn't about how tightly you can monitor the system. That goes in your relationship, right? When you are micromanaging me in a work environment, in a relationship environment, in a me-to-me environment, it says, I don't trust you. And that's what it says inside here too. Low trust individuals require constant monitoring. Highly efficient, high-performing individuals, they don't. We want to look, how efficiently can I run without constant supervision, right? So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Might be controversial. You might absolutely love it. I'm not sure. But I'd love to hear your feedback as always. So send me a message, give me your comments. And of course, as always, if you've loved this podcast, even if you've liked it, if you've got value from it, please like the episode. Please follow the podcast on all the different areas. And please share it amongst your community. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye.